You don't know that most believe that their hearts are unchangeable. A lot of people believe that they will never be good enough for God and that they are not enough for God. And I can only say that because I used to believe that once upon a time that I would never be good enough for God, that I'm not valuable, that I'm not worth anything, that I'm not even good enough to change. And that's a lie of the devil. That's something that the world has framed many of us to believe, believing that we are damaged good, believing that we can't change, that we can't be different, that our hearts is unworkable, that not even God can work our hearts and to change the state of it and the condition of it, because life has beaten many of us up. Life has robbed us of our identity and who we were actually created to be. And so most people, even right now, although God is calling them, although he's pulling on their hearts, and they feel the pull, they feel the touch, they feel the tug, many won't even come because they feel as though I am not good enough. And I want to let you know that it doesn't matter what you've gone through. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how big the thing was that you've done. Maybe to others it may seem so unforgivable that we'll never forget about what you did. We'll never let that off the hook. We'll never scratch that off record. And so you have that perspective that says, well, man, even God can accept me. And I want to let you know that that is not true. Jesus says to all those all those that will read his word, he says, come unto me, all of you that are heavy laden, who are burdened. He says that in Matthew 11, I believe. He says, come unto me and I will give you rest. He says to take his yoke and his burdens, for they are easy and they are light. And so many times we could walk around heavy. We can walk around feeling as though we can never be accepted by God. We can walk around feeling like, man, I've done so much. There's so much dirt on my name that I know God himself can't even change me. I'm an unchangeable person because I'm evil. I'm evil in my heart. I've stolen from people. I've lied to people. I've taken things away from people. I've raped people. I've touched people inappropriately. I've done some things that the world classifies me as a criminal. And so I know that when God sees me, he sees me as someone that cannot be loved. He sees me as someone that cannot be changed. And I want to let you know that you can be changeable. You are changeable. You just have to allow God. Jesus says this in Matthew 11, verse 28. Come unto me, all you that are labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He says that because he understands that we can carry the burden of the world on our shoulders. He tells us this because he knows that we are born into a world of sin. And so with that, there are going to be curses attached. There's going to be hardships attached. There's going to be pain and suffering attached. And so Jesus understands that if not all of us, most of us are going to live a hard life to where we experience the curses that are on our world, to where we experience, being born into a broken family, to where we experience curses active in a family, to where we experience being touched inappropriate, being verbally abused, being physically abused. He understands that we're going to go through things. And as we go through life, we take on these burdens that a lot of times it makes us hardened. It makes us bitter. It makes us unopen to actual love. It makes us unopen to truth. So he understands that. And so it's heavy. Most of you right now, you're carrying a heavy load. You're carrying the burdens of the world, the stuff that you've been through in your life. It's heavy. And most have learned how to maneuver their way through life, learning how to cope with the conditions of their hearts. And most people have been traumatized. Most people have been messed up mentally. A lot of people deal with mental issues because of their past and because of what they've gone through throughout life. I want to let you know that that's a burden that Jesus desires to uplift and to remove from you. He wants to take the burden that's on you, that you've carried for years, that you've carried for so long. He wants to give you an exchange because he says his burden and his yoke, they are easy and they are light. He says, take He says, take my yoke upon you. That's an exchange. And learn of me, meaning learn my ways. Learn of who I am. He says, for I am meek and I am lowly in heart. That's who he is. He says, and you shall find rest unto your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So if you do this exchange, then he's guaranteeing that you will have peace. He's not giving you a maybe. He's not giving you a if. He says, if you give me your yoke and your burdens, and I will give you mine, and they're easier to bear. They're easier to carry versus you carrying in this weight and this burden that is weighing you down. You can't even manage your own burden, but he says to take his so that you can actually have rest. You can have rest in this life before you ever get to heaven. You don't have to walk around carrying stuff that happened to you years ago, stuff that happened in your early adulthood. You don't have to live this way, but most people choose to live this way. Most people feel as though their hearts are unchangeable, but there's nothing too hard for God. There's nothing too big for God. There's nothing too small for God. There's nothing too tough for God. It doesn't matter how messed up the world told you that you were. It doesn't matter how messed up your family told you were. Yeah, you're this way. You're a vagabond. You're no good. You'll never amount to anything. Nobody will ever love you. Yeah, God himself can't even love you. You're damaged at heart. Yeah, you're unchangeable. Your heart can't even be altered or changed or transformed or reshaped or molded. But the word of God says that He loves us. Jesus says that everyone who knows him has seen the Father. And he says that if we are dead and if we hear his voice, then we are made alive. And in that, God calls us so that he can change us. And so you don't have to think that you're of no value to God and that your heart can't be changed. I thought about Paul and how Paul was someone who wanted to persecute Christians and kill Christians. And then in a blink of an eye, in a moment, Paul was changed. It was so quick that when he went to Damascus preaching, that it says that they were astonished. They were shocked. They were amazed at the fact, like, wait a minute, like, you came to this very city for this reason. You're preaching the same name. You're preaching in this name. This is why you came to this city, but you're preaching this name. And so for many, it took them by surprise to the fact that this person was changed instantly. And see, that's the thing. God can change you instantly. God can change you in a moment. He could change you in a moment. It doesn't matter if you have a criminal record. It doesn't matter if you have a bad reputation. It doesn't matter that the streets know you as this. Yeah, the streets, they know you as this kind of person. The world knows you as this kind of person. The system, the government system knows you as this person. And so God is not going to look at you like the world. The world may never accept you again. The world may never clean your record. They may never forgive you what you've done. But God, he cleans that all off because it's covered under the blood. Yeah. He can give you a whole new reputation. Yeah, he can wipe it all clean, and he can change your evil heart. He did it with Saul. Yeah, Saul's heart was this way. He was zealous for the Lord, but in the wrong way. He was persecuting Christians. He was persecuting those that called on the name of the Lord. But in an instant, in a blink of an eye, the Lord changed his heart. Changed it. And that word change, that simply means to alter, to reshape, to transform. Can your heart be changed? Can your heart be reshaped? Can your heart be altered? Can your heart adjust? It can. All of the desires that you've ever had in the world, like lust, you have a drive to see naked people. You have a drive to see people intimate. You have a drive to see people being verbally abused and to, verbally abuse other people. You have a drive to see these things. Your heart is evil. You have a drive for violence and for murder. God can change that desire. He can change the desire for you loving evil. He can take it away. Yeah. Most people, I've heard people say, well, I can't follow God yet because I have to get myself together, or I'm trying to serve God, but I keep failing. I want to let you know that God can give you power to make a 360 direction to where you never have to go back into that sin again. You never have to open that door. He can disconnect all of those desires, all of those evil desires, all of those evil ways. He can destroy those things, and he can give you power to hate it. That's what he's doing when he's changing your heart. When you commit to the Lord and you allow God, that word allow means to give God permission into your heart, allowing God, giving God authorization to you. That means not having no walls up, letting the walls of your heart fall completely down and letting God actually into your heart to where he can come and he can reign. And as he's reigning, he can fill your heart. And as he's filling it, that feeling, it's taking over your emotions. It's taking over your feelings. It's taking over your desires and the things that drive you to make decisions. It's taking over, and it's washing, and it's cleansing, and it's purifying, and it's sanctifying. Yeah, that's what that feeling is doing when you allow God. When you allow God in, that means the walls of your heart, they come down. That means you don't have up no walls. That means you're not halfway opening your heart to God. That means you're not afraid. That means you're not fearful. That means you trust God. You allow God in. That word allow, you're giving God permission to come in and to make room for himself and to give you power and to change your heart, to alter your heart, to adjust your heart. Yeah. You don't have to be bound to the stuff that you're bound to. You got a lot of people, they won't come to God because they have struggles. They have addictions and they keep falling. Every time I feel like I want to, draw closer to God, I keep falling into the same sins. I want to let you know that you do not have the power to do it on your own. If you had the strength and if you had the power, then you would not need God. But God knows our weakness because we are born and shaped into iniquity. This flesh is full of failure. It's full of weakness. Yeah, your body, your flesh, your heart, your mind, your soul is weak. It's weak. And so if you try to change yourself, then you're going to continue to fail. You're going to continue to fall into the same sins. You're going to continue to find other mechanisms and other ways to alter and maneuver your way around life, because that's what it's in you to do. It's in you to cover yourself with fig leaves like Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, instead of them going to God, they went out and started to try to fix problems on their own, fix matters on their own. And what they did was they tried to cover the problem with another source instead of going to the one who made the problem. He can fix it. He can fix it. And so we try to do that. We break things in our lives. We destroy things. We cause problems in our own life. And what we tend to do a lot of times is we try to take matters into our own hands and we try to fix it ourselves. That's what we do. It's like the children, when they break something, what they tend to do a lot of times is they'll try to hide it. They'll try to hide it. Maybe they've broken a vase or they've broken something that was very valuable to their parents. And what they'll do is they'll try to hide it and maybe even try to fix it themselves. And it's not until you find it or they finally confess, Mom, Dad, I broke this. I tried to fix it though. I broke it. And you're like, if you would have just came to me and told me that you broke it, I could have fixed it. I could have showed you how it worked. I could have showed you how to actually put the pieces together. But you thought that you could do it on your own. Adam and Eve thought that. They thought that they could fix the problem on their own. And that's what we tend to do a lot of times as adults and as people. We break things, we mess things up, and we try and we go out to the world, we go out to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we try to fix it ourselves. Yeah, let me just take fig leaves off of the tree that we ate from. Let me just take the leaves from the tree and fix the problem and cover myself. That's what we do a lot of times, and we just make matters worse. And God is saying, just come to me. I made you. I can fix you. He is the one that can restore the broken things. He is the one that knows where the pieces belong. Yeah, you got the child that brought back the vase or the picture frame with tape on it and glue on it. I think it's the Elmer Fudge glue. I don't know the exact name, but the Elmer glue, I think it is. And the pieces are just out of place. They're in the wrong place. They're out of order. And this thing could have been fixable had they brought it to you. Had they brought it to you instead of trying to do it themselves, then this thing would have been fixed the right way. Now it's really messed up. And we do that. we do that. We try to turn to relationships thinking that that's going to fix us, thinking that that's going to make us whole, thinking that that's going to give us security and peace. We turn to drugs, because in the drugs, it makes us have a sense of peace, but it's a false peace because it's not real peace. But as we give ourselves to these things, such as drugs that changes and alters our state of mind, it gives us a way out for a moment. It takes away the pain. It numbs the pain. It relieves us of having to actually face what we're going through in life. And so we'll turn to stuff like drugs. We'll turn to relationship thinking that this is where my peace is. This is where my healing is. This is where my affirmation is. This is where I'm going to find myself a room until those things fill us. Yeah, we think that it's TV. People find pleasure in watching sitcoms and reality TV shows. You have people that think that their peace and their healing is going to be in music. That's why you have people that turn to music. And like they say, music moves the soul. It moves the soul because it stirs up your emotions and your feelings. And music can cause you to feel away. Music can cause you to feel happy. Music can cause you to feel down. Music can cause you to feel aggressive. Music can cause you to feel angry. Music can cause you to feel depression. It can do that. It can move your emotions. And so a lot of times when we are hurting and when we are trying to navigate our way through life, many people, we turn to music and we turn to television and we turn to these sitcoms. We turn to soap operas because we feel like, well, I'm going to be able to escape life through this. And so we do that. You got people that play video games. You got people that go shopping and they believe that in this shopping, in this video game, I'm going to find a way out. I'm going to find a way out because we think that what we need, our healing, our fullness, our completion is found in these things when it's really found in God. It's really found in God. And so we can turn to the world trying to fix our problems, or we can make a decision to turn to God who can fix you and make you whole, because that's what Jesus comes to do. When he interacted with blind Bartimaeus, I was reading that today in John 5. One of the things that Jesus told blind Bartimaeus is, or not blind Bartimaeus, I'm sorry, the person that was at the pool of Bethesda. So I don't want to get the stories mixed up. So one of the things that Jesus told the blind guy at the pool of Bethesda was, go and sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. So we understand that what caused him to be in that condition was sin, right? Because we live in a sinful world. We live in a sinful world. And when we open the door to sin, because sin lies at the door, then we invite more curses in. We invite the enemy to come and to cause destruction, because he comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. And so we make room for the enemy. We make room for the principalities. We make room for the powers of the air to cause destruction in our lives and to cause us to be physically blind and spiritually blind to what's around us. And so with the guy at the pool of Bethesda, he was blind both physically and spiritually. And so when Jesus came to him, let me go there real quick. When Jesus came to him, Jesus told him to take up his bed and walk. But Jesus says, now you are made whole, because Jesus come to make you whole. He doesn't do a half job. If you have a half heart, meaning if your heart is not fully surrendered and fully open, then what he does give you, if he decides to give you anything like he did the 9 lepers, what he does give you is going to be a portion of what he really has for you. Yeah. You're not going to be fully whole. You're going to be healed, but you're not going to be made whole. We know that, and I believe John 10 with the lepers. I think it's John 10. I could be mixing some stories up. But there were 10 lepers, and Jesus healed them, but only one came back. And that's an example of our hearts being fully open. When our hearts are not fully open, and we cannot fully receive God. If I don't allow God, then God cannot do what he wants to do, what he's come to do. And that is to make us whole. That is to heal us of brokenness. That is to heal us of trauma. That is to heal us of our bad experiences. And so we can be made whole, but we have to allow God. And so Jesus says, you are made whole. Yeah. You are made whole every which way, every part of you. That word whole, that means his heart has now been changed. His heart is now changed. So now that your heart is changed, you have to make some different decisions. And your heart should provoke and move you into that direction, into making better decisions. He says, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. What Jesus is saying right here is that when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, and if he comes back and finds, if the spirits come back and find this house swept and garnished and clean, well, that means that this person has gone back into sin. That means that this person has gone back and opened back up doors to those same spirits. So when he says, lest a worse thing come upon you, he's talking about when the spirits come back, guess what? They bring back 7 more spirits. They bring back 7 more spirits greater than themselves. And so that's that worst thing. Yeah. What you went through before, if you go back into that after I've set you free, after I've taken you out of this hole, then things are going to be worse for you. You think that the world has something to offer you? You think the world is going to give you what you need and to make you whole and to affirm you? No. You're going to find things, you're going to find things in the world hard. You're going to find things out the hard way if you go to the world. Yeah. Things are going to be harder for you if you leave God. If you leave Jesus, things are going to be harder for you. Things are going to be worse for you. A lot worse. A lot worse. So he says, lest a worse thing come upon you. That's those 7 spirits that come back. And they bring 7 more spirits, or however many spirits were there before. When they come back and they find that nothing is here, they're going to occupy that space. They're going to fill that space. And so Jesus wants to come and change your heart, because in your heart lies nothing good. Jeremiah tells us that the heart is deceitful above all things, is desperately wicked. And if you think for a moment that you are okay the way that you are, then you're going to remain a slave to your emotions. You're going to remain a slave to your heart, because you can confront the lies of your heart. You can confront the lies of your heart. But if I think that I'm okay, then I'm going to stay that way. You know, it's Solomon that says, as a man thinks, so is he, in Proverbs. Yeah. As you think, then that's what you're going to become. If you think that you are okay the way that you are, if you think that you are a good person in your own eyes and according to your own standards, then you're going to stay that way. You're going to stay blind. You're going to stay a slave to your emotions. You're going to stay a slave to the curse. You're going to stay a slave to the trauma that you've gone through. You're going to stay a slave to that because you think that you are okay. And we act out based on what we think and what we believe. If I believe that I am okay, if I think that I am unchangeable and that I can't change, then I'm going to live and act according to that belief. But if I believe that I can be changed and that I am changeable, then I have to allow God. That should position you to allow God to do whatever he needs to do. That gives permission to God to come in and to make room, to make an adjustment. You got to give God permission. You have to allow God, because he's not going to force himself on you. There were plenty of people that Jesus would walk right by. He would walk right by people. We don't, a lot of times we don't talk about that Jesus. We talk about the Jesus that's full of love and, you know, that laid down his life and that took up his cross for us and that took nails in his hand. But we don't like to talk about the Jesus that walked past people, that ignored people, that was blind and deaf to people. We don't like to talk about that Jesus. But that same Jesus that died on the cross for you and I, that took nails in his hand, is the same Jesus that will walk right by us if we are okay. If we seem to be okay in our conditions, then he's going to leave you in that. Oh no, you think that you are okay. Your situation isn't that bad to you, enough for you to cry out, enough for you to reach out, enough for you to get low, enough for you to get through the crowd. No, you are okay the way that you are. And so I'm going to leave you the way that you are. But all of those that they know that they're sick and they're in need of a physician, oh, those are the ones that I'm going to come to. Those are the ones that I'm going to reach out to. Those. Other than that, the rest of you, you're fine. You're okay. But though there are those whose hearts that I actually want to change, because they're not damaged good, they're changeable. They're changeable, they're moldable, they're shapeable. Yeah, I want to love them. I want them to know that I have the power to change them in a blink of an eye. Doesn't matter what's under your belt. It doesn't matter what society know you as. God has the power to change you in a moment. That means he can change your heart. He can change the way that you think, the way that you feel, what you believe, your perspectives, your mindset. He can change all of that to where you no longer think the same. He's doing that. He's doing that. He's done that with me, and he's still changing me. I no longer think the way that I used to think. And me being a thinker, and most of you may be able to relate to being a thinker. That's someone you're always thinking. Your thoughts have thoughts. Your mind is just always going. My mind is always going, and it doesn't help that I'm a visual person. And so I can hear a story, and my mind is already forming it out into a whole story, a whole picture, a whole image of what you're telling me. And so with my mind, the Lord has changed that. And so I no longer think the way that I used to think. When I'm faced with things, when the enemy tries to throw darts and my mind wants to begin to wander, I have power to now arrest those thoughts. I have power to now stop those thoughts and to confront the lies of the enemy as I'm confronting the lies of my heart. That's what Jesus Christ wants to give you power to do, to confront the lies of your heart. Even your own heart. You know, a lot of times it's not even people that we listen to and that we cause us to keep us from God. It's a lot of times it's us. It's us. We allow our own hearts to deceive us. You know, the world has taught us to follow our hearts. The world has taught us to go with your heart. Go with whatever your heart feels. If your heart is telling you to go here, follow it. If your heart is telling you that this is love, follow it. If your heart is telling you to let this go, follow it. And more than often, our hearts have deceived us. Our hearts have taught us how to manipulate our way out of things and manipulate our way into things. Our heart has taught us how to be deceptive. Our heart has taught us how to be manipulative. Our heart has deceived us and robbed us out of things that we were supposed to get from God, but we allowed our hearts to keep us back. We accepted the lies of our hearts that told us God can never love us. God can never love me. God can never love me. Look at me. I'm a mess. Look at me. I've thrown my life away. Look at me. I'm messed up. I'm a wrecking ball. Look at me. I'm a wrecking ball. I'm a hot mess. Look at me. How can God ever love me when nobody has ever loved me? And anybody that tried to, the real them always came out at the end. And so I'm not even going to try God because I already know that he's just like people. And that's where we are. That's where we go wrong at. When we think that God is like people, when we think that God is like man, and his word says clearly that God's ways is higher than our ways. God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are not like ours. And so when we start comparing God to man, that's where we miss out. So our own hearts can deceive us and make us feel like I'm too messed up. I've already been out in the world long enough. I've already gone too far. You know, your heart can keep you back. Your heart, the lies of your heart can deceive you, making you feel like even God himself can't love you. Because other people have told you that, man, you're unlovable. Man, you're unchangeable. Man, nobody can't love you. You're so hardened, or you're so broken, and you're so messed up. Like, you need to just stay by yourself. You need to not engage people. So that's when many of us will start falling into isolation, and we'll start closing ourselves off and feeling like, man, I just can't gel with people. I can't gel with women, although I'm a female. I can't gel with men, although I'm a man. And so we come to God like that, and we feel like, man, I'm not even going to try God. I'm not even going to try God because he's just like people. And I tell you what, God is not like people. God is nothing like people. He is nothing like people. It is true. His word is true. He says that he will never leave you nor forsake you. You know, God don't leave people. People leave God. People walk away from God. People leave God. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And his word says that he always makes a way of escape. You know what that means? That when we are put into a form of temptation, there's always a way out. There's always that other option. There's always that other answer. So you have a yes and you have a no. You have I will do or I will not do. And so there's always another option. Either I'm going to do this or I am not. And so he always allowed. He always permit. He always let there be a way out. You do not have to give into this. You're not subject to this. Yeah, There's always another way. Always another way. Now, to get to God, there's only one way. But to get out of a situation, there's always that other option. It's just many times we give into our flesh. We allow our hearts to trip us up and to get us into trouble. We allow our hearts to keep us back from the healing that God wants to give us. And so that's my message today, is that God wants to heal you. You, all of you, every part of you. He wants to touch, but you have to allow God. You have to let God in. And it may be uncomfortable. I can't promise you that it's not going to be uncomfortable. I can't promise you that it's not going to be painful. But what I can tell you is that it's going to be worth it. What I can tell you is that you're going to be changed, that you're going to be reshaped, that you're going to be reformed, that your mind is going to be renewed, and your heart is going to take on the heart of God. That's what I can tell you. It may not always be fun. It may not always feel good, but it's going to be worth it in the end. You know, people don't know what it's like to be free. Being in the world but not being of the world. Most people don't know what it's like to actually be free. Most people who I've spoken to over the years, they tell me the same stuff. Yeah, man, it's the same stuff but a different day. But that doesn't have to be your story. That doesn't have to be your situation. You don't have to be like everybody else in your family. You don't have to be like all of your high school friends that are still doing the same stuff they were doing since high school. That don't have to be your story. That do not have to be your story. So God can actually heal you. It doesn't matter how many years of trauma it was, how painful the years have been for you. He can turn that around. He can heal that broken thing. He restores the things that are broken. He fixes the things that are damaged. You understand that? The stuff that are damaged and it just seems like it's unfixable and you just have to throw it in the trash. You do not have to be trash. You do not have to be trash. Now, if you are just damaged good, if you are sealed in that, where you just won't change, you won't bend like the clay you won't take shape, then what do we do with trash? We burn it. And so if you are damaged goods, then you are going to go where things are burned. And I'm not talking about dwelling with the everlasting burnings. I'm talking about going to a place where trash is consumed. I'm talking about going to a place where that's all you will ever experience is torment. And so God doesn't want that for you. I don't want that for you. And so you have to allow God. But you have to allow him. You have to. I can't do it for you. You have to allow God. That means giving God permission to come in. That means if you have to cut off people, cut off those strange voices, silence the lies of your heart, you could tell your flesh to be quiet and to get out of the way. No. Do you know we can tell ourselves things? We can tell ourselves things. We can convince ourselves that this is what it is when it's really not. And so I say that to say that you have power to shut the lies of your heart up. Yeah. Tell yourself that's not God. God doesn't want you to believe a lie. That's the devil. That's my flesh. You can tell yourself that. And so may the Spirit of God give you ears to hear. Allow God. I'm telling you, that's the best thing that you could ever do, is allowing God to come in so that he can change you for real. Real change. Real change. Real change. Real transformation. He can make you new. He can make you different. He can make you whole, and he can make you like him. And so be encouraged in Jesus' name.